let's go, let's go. As Six Flags announced their new for 2024 attractions chain-wide, we had some really good announcements. From an amazing new family wooden coaster at Great Escape, to some actual themed lands. For Six Flags Over Texas, the original Six Flags Park, their new addition was not a new coaster, not a new flat ride, not even a themed land. It was El Asoladero with a new name, introducing Rio Lento, which translates to Lazy River. According to Six Flags, the flume will now become the world's longest, and is advertised as a new ride, even though the flume ride is not new and is very historic. So if it's not new, what's with the hype on this attraction? Why are they making such a big deal about it? And did Over Texas get scammed yet again? Well, what if I told you that Six Flags Over Texas is actually hiding more info about this new ride, and that we basically only got the simplest version of it, but there's possibly so much in store, and more to be revealed. In today's video, we're going to discuss my theory about what Over Texas is actually planning for 2024, and how Rio Lento will be more than what meets the eye, if Six Flags does it right. Before we get into the theory though, if you're new here, welcome to the channel for all those thrill seekers. On JV Thrills, we make all sorts of content related to theme parks and thrill rides, no matter where they're located. And for those Texas enthusiasts specifically, this is your source of news for all Texas thrills. So if you're interested, be sure to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell to know when new videos come out on my channel. Anyways, let's get into today's video. To many, the new edition of Rio Lento at Six Flags Over Texas is considered underwhelming, and I completely understand the feeling. Over Texas is the original Six Flags park, and yet they haven't gotten anything big or special for the park in years. The only original coaster they've gotten is Titan, since New Texas Giant was basically a renovation, and Aquaman Power Wave is not a standout coaster even if it's a good ride, with even that being delayed for 3 years straight. So honestly, it's not that surprising that many people were upset with this addition, as other Six Flags parks continue to get big additions and unique additions, with Over Texas left in the dust. And here's the thing, when they announced this new addition, I was upset as well, since after all, Flume 1 is not a new attraction. It's been in the park and it's just been standing but not operating. Yes, it did open last year for the first time ever, but then it closed again. And to reopen it is not considered new in any way, shape, or form. So to many, this new addition is what Six Flags Over Texas should have done years ago. And again, it's why people should understandably be upset. But here's the thing, Rio Lento is more than what meets the eye, since really Six Flags gave little to no information on what's going to happen with the log flume. Even in my previous video, I was only expecting log flume 1 to be refurbished, considering they left the El Asoladero name on the ride website. So when the park announced a new addition as the world's longest log flume, and also announced that a new lift was coming in, I thought it was just for log flume 1, and that they were basically scamming us because the ride already has technically 2 drops. But no, I was wrong, and here's why. With the new details that came out, Rio Lento is not 2 separate log flumes, nor is it a Flume 1 renovation. Rio Lento will combine Flume 1 and Flume 2, making it one of the world's longest log flumes. And when they combine this log flume, it'll essentially have 3 drops, 2 which are original, and 1 brand new lift hill, which is considered to be steep and give you a straight nosedive. Meaning 2 things. Number 1, Rio Lento is not a refurbishment. Number 2, essentially this is a whole new log flume coming to Over Texas in 2024. And if you don't believe me, on the official website itself, they word for word say that they're going to combine the 2 flumes to make it the world's longest. And honestly, this is very intriguing. And yes, for the Over Texas historians, this does hurt, because it essentially means the original will be long gone. Yes, they're combining it, but there's 2 routes they can take this, and I'll talk about that in a sec. But essentially, Rio Lento is more than what meets the eye. It's not 2 flumes, it's 1 long one, and there's a lot more potential if they're saying this. Plus, here's one thing to keep in mind, Rio Lento has little to no further details revealed about the attraction. It's just a name, a quick synopsis, and barely a logo until they recently put it out on the email. Meaning we don't have its new layout, we don't know what's in store for the attraction, and we just know little bits and pieces of it. So clearly, there's more to be revealed. And before we start judging the attraction, we need to think further about what's in store, and how much potential this ride actually has to be one of the best flumes in America, or at least for Six Flags standards. So first, in order to get to the prediction, we need to start with what we know. So let's begin. Obviously, if Six Flags is advertising El Asoladero as a whole new experience, we can expect a whole new experience. And even if Six Flags has had a previous bad track record with new rides, this year appears to be very different, as the parks are striving to bring new experiences and new thrills to make the park better, instead of just upping the prices. And if they are going to still up the prices, they're at least going to make it worth it. So again, it was very surprising why Over Texas would just introduce a new ride, even though it's the same ride we've been having on Over Texas. And again, it's why I say El Rio Lento won't just be a renovation, but an entirely new experience. And again, if Six Flags wants to be better, they need to be very specific with what new attractions come to their parks. And while previously it was just for the money, it appears this year they at least had a little bit of a plan on what to install for all the parks. One prime example is Great Escape. They lost a coaster that was considered a family coaster, and they brought another family coaster in from GCI that will completely up the experience for Great Escape. Even when applying this to Great America, sure to many it seems like a regular clone, but the park was actually lacking a brand new flat ride that was high thrill, and A Good Discovery was the perfect fill for it, and a lot of people, even me, predicted it. Looking at Fiesta Texas, they needed to up Kidzopolis, and this refurbishment is exactly what they needed. Even if you disagree that DC Universe should have not been the theme, this will benefit the park as a whole. So clearly this year they know what they're doing with the brand new attractions. And for Over Texas, from the outside it might seem like they don't care and they're doing the cheap route. We might be way off, and they might in fact be honoring the history of Over Texas while also benefiting the park. So it leaves you wondering, why would they do this? Well, after some investigating, I think I found some reasons as to why they would do this new attraction over any new flat ride or new roller coaster. Number 1, to compete with SeaWorld San Antonio. While yes, Over Texas is pretty far from San Antonio, competition still exists, and last year SeaWorld San Antonio introduced a record-breaking log flume that contains a launch, an elevator lift hill with a steep drop, and an airtime hill, which is Catapult Falls. And while right now it did get delayed to 2024, Six Flags definitely saw this, and it could be considered a threat to Six Flags, or at least the ones in Texas. Plus, log flumes seem to get way more advanced as the years progress, especially the new ones created by Intamin that contain turntables, elevated lifts, and very steep drops. So for El Aserradero, it's considered very outdated even if it's a classic, which could be a motive to create this new experience for El Aserradero. And that's why I think El Rio Lento will be more than what meets the eye, but we'll get to that in a bit. The second motive could plainly be that log flume 1 and 2 are an issue. In the Six Flags quarterly call, they said they would strive to bring brand new modern attractions that would replace problematic attractions. And while Flume 2 isn't that very problematic, Flume 1 definitely is. It would always close down, and they barely opened it last year. Plus, even with both attractions running, it was still an issue because the queue was set up very weirdly. Some areas would be very tight and wouldn't be ADA regulated. So it goes to show again that El Aserradero is out of date, even if it's a great classic attraction. So it needs to change a little bit with the times. So to make it all one flume could allow for a better queue system, less chances of the ride breaking down, and overall an experience that could last a lot longer than the current one we have right now, which actually makes a lot of sense. And for the third motive, this one's more speculated, but it would also make a lot of sense. Rumor has it, this year, Over Texas had plans to install an Axis coaster, and in a way it was slightly confirmed by people that worked at Six Flags Over Texas. But apparently plans changed, and we got El Rio Lento, which is very surprising, and it leaves me wondering, why did they do this? Hypothetically, if we were to have an Axis coaster, why did they change their mind, since after all this is the perfect addition for Over Texas? Well, there's two reasons. Number 1, they probably need to save some money to justify the expense, and when adding the new additions to all the other Six Flags parks, they just said let's push back this Axis coaster to next year instead. Then not only that, but they probably had issues finding where to put this coaster. And while yes, there are some good spots, like the Music Mill Amphitheater, or the space that Harley Quinn's in, the space in Gotham City isn't really a good spot since it's not big enough for an Axis. Yes, they can fit a coaster there, but I would say it's too similar to Joker to be right next to it, and the coaster takes more of an out and back layout, so again, it doesn't fit there. As for Music Mill, it definitely has room there, but it's also a floodplain, and it would be expensive to tear down the theater, then build an expensive attraction. Another place I had in mind was replacing La Vibra, but this is also not a good spot as this means that La Vibra has to go, and while at some point this coaster will leave the park, I wouldn't take it away until it becomes absolutely necessary. So where in the park would it go? Well, actually many rumors speculated that a future coaster could go right between New Texas Giant and the Texas section, in that little area where the river goes around the park. But here's the one issue. El Aserradero is in the way. While yes, they could put the station next to Titan, and the coaster can go out and around, it would be better if the station was next to Sidewinder, and then did the out and back layout right in the center of that little river. But of course you can't do it with the log flumes in the way. So what if, and this is a big if, El Rio Lento will change the layout of the log flume to make sure it gives enough space for a future addition that'll go right there next to that river. And this is why we're getting the addition right now, because they're putting plans into effect for next year. And if this is true, this is very exciting, and I don't mind getting a Rio Lento if we're still gonna get that Axis. But again, it's only a theory. And I'm still 100% sure this was made to compete with Catapult Falls. So if it's made to compete with Catapult Falls, what will this attraction have to offer? And will it be worth the hype? Well, like I said, there's no concept art, plans, or even a layout of what to expect besides the new drop and combine the flumes. Meaning the layout can take any form, but again there's lots of potential, and they could really add a lot of themed elements to make this attraction even better than it already was. and with little to no info. My theory is they're currently planning what to do with the attraction, and how to make it more than just a refurbishment, but essentially a whole new attraction out over Texas. But since we have little to no idea of what they're going to do with the attraction, we're going to do what I do best, and that is speculation, and I have some ideas on how to make this attraction absolutely amazing. So here's my idea. As of right now, Over Texas continues to stand out because compared to other Six Flags parks, Over Texas has history. And there's a lot to work with when the park has over 60 years of history behind it. And when it comes to El Asadero, the world's first log flume, if they're really going to make these drastic changes, they have to keep the history going. And that means pay some homage with the theming. How? Well, remember, the length of the attraction will be doubled. And if it's doubled, I better not see just a normal layout that just goes in the trees. I'm talking actual scenic things, like going through a tunnel that looks like a cave. Maybe going around a river, and they can make the ride a whole experience. One cool feature I'm thinking is a little turnaround where the logs can pass a Mexican village that has a little pond with boats floating on it, which is actually a reference to the original Ferrocarril Fiesta train, where that exact same scene happened in that ride. But now with the ride defunct, this would be a great homage to a classic attraction. Now of course, this would be on the pricier side of new additions, but the little details make a very big difference. Regardless, my alternative option that's a little bit cheaper is if they played the theme with a more natural take. After all, it's not called Rio Lento, which is lazy river. But if they place emphasis on a river, a natural river, they could have some really cool effects that don't have to be big budget but still make a difference. For example, amazing scenery that make you truly feel like you're in a forest, sound effects of animals on the ride, possible splash effects, and maybe even a waterfall that you go under, with the final drop not just being a typical lift hill that looks like a typical log flume. Maybe they can model the drop to look like actual rocks, so it almost looks like the log flume is falling off an actual waterfall, and that would be a really cool effect. Not to mention at night, they can definitely have some ambience lighting that'll make Rio Lento the opposite of its actual name. Log rides do not have to be boring, and they can be very creative. And one more thing I do want to add is the fact that we do not know the manufacturer for the new El Rio Lento. The original creator of El Asadero was Arrow, and Arrow is not in business anymore. So my prediction is that Intamin will be responsible for this project. And it makes sense considering that Six Flags created a newfound relationship with Intamin, considering Over Georgia's new attraction. And let me tell you, Intamin has created some amazing log flumes that contain some very special stuff, from airtime hills to segments that take the log flumes backward. So clearly, Intamin has some skills when it comes to log flumes, and if Over Texas uses their cards correctly, we might just have an amazing addition for 2024. And honestly, that'll make up for not having a roller coaster. But anyways, this is just speculation. And if you want to stay updated on all news about the new attraction at Over Texas, be sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell to know when new videos come on my channel, as I will update you when more info comes out on the new attraction. Anyways, thank you for watching. This is JB Thurl signing out.